Is the Strait of Hormuz blocked or not? It is blocked. Who effectively blocked it? Iran did. Who can't open it up? Dumbass Donald Trump. Because this war never made any sense.
Welcome back, everyone. And if this is your first time here, you picked a seriously good video to land on. What you are about to watch is one of those debates where the temperature in the room just keeps rising and nobody is backing down. Chank Uygur goes head-to-head with Ben Ferguson over the US-Iran war, the Strait of Hormuz crisis, and whether the people running this conflict actually had a plan at all. And then Glenn Beck, yes, Glenn Beck, shows up and says something that honestly stopped me in my tracks. Stay with this one all the way through, because the moment that made my jaw drop is not at the beginning. It builds, and when it lands, you will want to rewind it. Also, I am genuinely curious. Where in the world are you watching this from? Drop your city or country in the comments right now. I love seeing where this community is spread across the globe. All right, let's get into it.
I agree. I said that was probably the reason. I mean, just to correct you on one thing, Trump literally said yesterday nobody expected that about the Strait of Hormuz crisis, and he's also said several days ago.
Wait.
He's also said nobody expected the attacks on the Gulf states. So he didn't seem to expect any of this coming back from Iran, which I find very difficult to believe.
Piers, I don't think the Gulf states thought they were going to get attacked either, because it was insane for Iran to attack and then bring and draw them all in. I think if you talk to most military experts, they thought they would not do that, because why would you then want to take fire and have all these states that usually say neutral coming into it? I think that also shows how desperate the regime is right now. It's like, unload everything we got, see what happens and what we hit, show some sort of strength right now. That's desperation warfare is the way I would describe it.
Well, the only person putting more faces than you has been Chank Uygur, listening to you. So let's bring Cenk in. Welcome back. Cenk, your response to what Ben Ferguson's saying there. Nothing to see here. It's all going great. It'll be over soon. Everyone knew exactly how this was all going to play out. Nothing to worry about, Gov.
Yeah. So let's start with the stupidity and work our way to lies. So first off, Donald Trump says Joe Kent, he's not very smart and he's very weak on security. Then why did you make him the National Counterterrorism Director? I mean, it doesn't get any dumber than that, if you believe him. Number two, then he says, NATO, a couple of days ago, we all saw it with our own eyes. You got to help us. This is more your war than our war. This is more your interest than our interest. Please help. And now he says, we didn't need their help anyway. Yeah, after they said no. I mean, it's pathetic and it's obvious and it's silly. So then you go to what you were just mentioning. So, oh my God, no one could have predicted they would attack our bases in the Gulf countries. I predicted it. Every rational person predicted it. Well, what did you think they were going to do? That they were going to get attacked and they weren't going to counterattack? I mean, are the people running our government that preposterously stupid? Of course they're going to attack our bases. The reason why that talking point even exists is because we spent all of our time, resources, and defensive missiles on protecting Israel, and we left our own bases and our own soldiers vulnerable. So that's why they put out that incredibly dumb talking point.
This is the moment where the entire pro-war narrative starts cracking in real time, and what makes it so significant is that the fact check didn't come from the opposition, it came from the host. Piers Morgan, who has been relatively balanced throughout this whole conversation, looked straight at the camera and said Trump literally said yesterday nobody expected that about the Strait of Hormuz crisis. That's not a liberal commentator spinning the story. That's the moderator reading back the president's own words. And here's what people don't realize. When a leader says nobody expected something, they are either admitting they didn't plan for it, or they are hoping nobody goes back and checks the tape. Both options are bad, because the Strait of Hormuz being used as leverage by Iran in a conflict is not a surprise. Military analysts have been writing about this scenario for decades. It is literally in every war game simulation involving the Persian Gulf. Then Chank Uygur walks in and immediately says, let's start with the stupidity and work our way to lies. And you know what? That line alone tells you exactly where this conversation is about to go. Because he doesn't even start with anger. He starts with structure. He's building a case, not just venting. And then the NATO moment hits. You have to understand what actually happened here. A few days before this debate, the administration went to NATO allies and essentially said, "This is more your war than our war. Please help us." NATO said no, and then almost immediately the message flipped to, "We didn't need their help anyway." Cenk called it out word for word. He said it's pathetic and it's obvious and it's silly. And honestly, what else do you call it? You don't beg for help and then claim you never needed it. That's not strength. That's damage control dressed up as confidence. This is actually a pattern that historians have documented repeatedly in modern foreign policy. When a plan meets unexpected resistance, the public messaging shifts faster than the strategy does. You saw it in Vietnam. You saw it in Iraq. The language changes before the mission does. And once you recognize that pattern, you cannot unsee it.
And then in terms of the Strait of Hormuz, okay, hold on. I let you talk for like an hour. So now in Strait of Hormuz, they say, well, I mean, nobody could, you're right. Trump literally said no one could have seen it coming when everyone could have seen it coming. But number two, let's say that he's just lying about that and not a moron, right? Well, what difference does it make? If you saw it coming, you apparently did not adjust well enough and you got clowned by Iran. So the Strait of Hormuz is blocked. So look at all this propaganda, but the propaganda doesn't actually change the facts on the ground. Is the Strait of Hormuz blocked or not? It is blocked. Who effectively blocked it? Iran did. Who can't open it up? Dumbass Donald Trump. Because this war never made any sense. We all knew the Strait of Hormuz was going to get blocked. We all knew the oil prices were going to go high. And in fact, today, Israel exasperated it by bombing their gas fields, which we told them not to do. It's going to drive the gas prices through the roof. Now Iran is going to counter by attacking the Gulf countries' oil fields. That's going to double the disaster. And why won't Israel ever listen to us? And then that gets us to the lies. I mean, look at all these. So Ben Shapiro said about this show that it's a circus or Jerry Springer or whatever. No, the real circus is cable news and mainstream media. I mean, look at these preposterous lies. Lindsey Graham, they were going to get nukes in a couple of weeks. That is a brazen lie. That is not anywhere near true. They just regurgitate things that are lies on Fox News 24/7. It's an assembly line of lies to scare the boomers watching television. Oh, they were going to nuke you. Preposterous. No one in their right mind believes that. Then you go to Ben Shapiro, and he says, oh, the idea that politicians would be affected by a lobby. Of course they're affected by lobbies. Big Pharma controls our government so thoroughly we can't even negotiate drug prices. We're allowed to say that. We're allowed to say the big oil controls us so much that we give them billions in subsidies, which makes no sense at all. But when it comes to the Israeli lobby, that's when all of Washington en masse, especially television, pretends that it somehow magically has no power. That's absurd. They were the number one donors in this election cycle. They gave.
This is the part that blows my mind, because Cenk makes a point here that almost nobody in mainstream media was willing to say out loud. He said we spent all of our time, resources, and defensive missiles on protecting Israel, and we left our own bases and our own soldiers vulnerable. Read that back slowly. American soldiers, American bases left exposed, while the defensive resources went elsewhere. Now think about what that means strategically. If you go into a conflict and your first priority is protecting an ally's territory before your own personnel, and then something goes wrong and your own people get hit, and then your administration goes on television and says nobody could have predicted this, that is not just a communication failure. That is a resource allocation failure that got people hurt. And then comes the moment that this entire segment is built around. Cenk stops the noise, cuts through every talking point, and asks the only question that actually matters. Is the strait blocked or not? It is blocked. Who blocked it? Iran blocked it. Who cannot open it? And he answered that with zero hesitation. No spin, no deflection. Just the scoreboard. Here's the historical context that makes this even heavier. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the most strategically critical waterways on the planet. Roughly 20% of the world's oil supply passes through it. Every major power since the Cold War has treated protecting that passage as a non-negotiable national interest. Now, the idea that a military operation targeting Iran would not fully account for Iran's ability to close that strait is, and there is no gentle way to say this, a catastrophic strategic oversight. The war was sold on the promise of strength. But strength is not measured by how many targets you hit in the opening hours. It is measured by whether your core strategic objectives are actually being achieved. And right now, the single most important shipping lane in the world is blocked. That is the scoreboard. Everything else is commentary.
Over $100 million, and they've given to 94% of Congress, and they've given over $300 million to Donald Trump. Obviously, they control Trump. Obviously, they control Biden. Obviously, they control Congress. This should not be a taboo topic. It is patently absurd to say that
to
the
recap,
Israeli
you're
lobby
saying that Israel
is
is
the one
worse
lobby.
than Iran and the Ayatollah.
Hold on. I'm almost done. It's patently absurd to say that the Israeli lobby is the one lobby that is not effective, that has no effect at all, even though they're the number one donors to our politicians. Absurd.
Okay.
And it's done all to protect Israel.
You've now had way more than Ben Ferguson had, and you claim you claim that Ben had an hour. So Ben, hold your fire.
That was like
though.
7 hours.
Ben, hold your fire for a moment, because I'm going to bring in another guest briefly to discuss this. Glenn Beck, the founder of Blaze Media, he's broadcasting a live report tomorrow called "Exposing the Islamist Blueprint for Conquering the West." Glenn, great to have you back on Uncensored. Been meaning to talk to you about this war. What is your overview here? It seems to me a lot of things can be true at the same time. The Iranian regime is vile and evil, and no one should shed tears for the Ayatollah being killed or any of the top people running it. But that this massive strike by America in conjunction with Israel is already looking like it's not going to be anywhere near as easy as President Trump hoped it would be. It's not going to be like Venezuela and these other situations. I mean, you add the Strait of Hormuz crisis, you add the attacks by Iran on the Gulf states and so on. Now, this has got the potential to become a massive hornet's nest, hasn't it?
So I have to tell you, I mean, you know, I've been listening to the guests, and with all respect to everybody, how the hell do you know what it's going to turn into? I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. I know that I'm glad I'm not the president of the United States. I wouldn't have had the guts to do it. Every president since Ronald Reagan said, we got to take care of that, got to take care of that. And they all kick the can down the road because they know this could be a nightmare. They know what Iran, the tentacles of Iran means. This president just decided, we don't know on what, but he decided, I'm going to go for it. So he goes for it. I know it wouldn't have been the decision that I would have made only because I'm a coward. This president is like, I'm just going to take care of it. So he does. How this works out, I don't know. It could be fabulous. Could be World War III.
And this is where the conversation takes a turn that I think a lot of people were not expecting. Because right when you think the debate is going to stay focused on military strategy, Cenk pivots to something that has been sitting underneath this entire discussion the whole time. The financial influence over political decisions, the donor relationships that shape foreign policy in ways most television coverage refuses to examine directly. And the reason this matters is simple. If you want to understand why certain decisions get made, you have to follow who benefits and who is funding whom. That is not a conspiracy. That is just how institutional power has always worked. And then, and this is the part that genuinely surprised me, Glenn Beck shows up. Glenn Beck, one of the most prominent conservative voices in America for the last 20 years, a man who has spent his entire career defending the right. And when Piers asks him for his overview, he doesn't give you the triumphant pro-war answer you might expect. He says, how the hell do you know what it's going to turn into? I don't know. That sentence deserves more attention than it got, because Glenn Beck is not a liberal. He is not anti-military. He is not someone who reflexively opposes this administration. And even he is sitting there saying he genuinely does not know how this ends. You have to understand what that represents. When the people who support a decision start admitting publicly that they have no idea what the outcome looks like, that is not confidence. That is honesty breaking through the surface of the spin. And honestly, that kind of honesty is rarer than it should be. What this entire segment showed, from the NATO flip, to the exposed bases, to the blocked strait, to a conservative commentator openly admitting uncertainty, is that the gap between what was promised and what is actually happening has become too wide to paper over with talking points. History has shown us repeatedly that conflicts entered without a clearly defined exit strategy tend to expand in ways nobody planned for. That is not a political opinion. That is just the documented record. The strait is still blocked. The scoreboard has not changed. So what do you guys think of this? Leave your thoughts down in the comments. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.